Our player canvas is now ready for us to start adding some UI elements. The first one that we're going to add is a text object. But before we add it, what we want to do is go over in our scene view here, and in the top left, we're actually going to click game. What that's going to do is show us what our camera sees inside the game. From here, we will go back to our hierarchy. We will click on our canvas, right click it, and then in the drop down, go down to UI and text. Now we have this text object here. What we want to do is make sure that that's centered. So we can go ahead and drop down into the paragraph section in our inspector. We'll hit alignment in the middle and the middle buttons. Those two middle buttons will bring our text to the middle. And you can actually see very faintly that the text is centered on our screen. What we then want to do is change its color from this dark grayish color up to a red. If your color wheel isn't set to red currently, you can just click on the outside and drag it around to the red color. Now what we want to do is replace this kind of ugly default font. By default, Unity wants us to give this Arial font, and we want to use a cooler font, something that's a little more exciting to look at. So inside our project pane here, we can enter the Techability folder, Fonts, and you'll see this font called Deathmarkers. We can click our text object and drag this Deathmarkers object into our font field in the inspector. That's going to replace our font with this cool, kind of gory looking font. Next, what we'll do is replace our text in the text field with game over. And the case doesn't matter here. This particular font puts everything into capital, so if you put it in lowercase, it shouldn't matter. But this is still pretty small. It looks better than it did, but it's still pretty tiny on our screen. So what we want to do is hop up to our width here. We're going to set this to a really big number, 1200. And then we're going to set our height here to 300. So you can just add a 0 onto the end. And then finally, what we want to do is crank up our font size. So you can just click and drag. If you click anywhere between where it says font size and our actual field here, you can click and drag to scale it up. And I'm going to say probably 128 is a good size. So you can enter 128 directly, or you can click it and drag it and find a size that you think looks good. If you make it too big, however, it might disappear because it gets outside of this width and this height. So if you want to make it really, really big, you can just increase your width and your height until you can see it. But I'm going to recommend sticking around 128. The last thing we want to do on this one is at the very top, you see where this check mark is next to our name text. We actually want to click that and disable our text object because we don't want game over to show up on screen until the player's game is actually over.